Today, we had the pleasure of talking to Lincoln Jesser, the creator of Healing House. He's a sound healer who specializes in music design to help you heal. During this conversation, we talk about how sound affects us on a cellular level, how frequency and intention equals healing, and the power of the present moment.
We discuss how music acts as cosmic glue that brings us together, and how the mind is like an algorithm that will show you more of what you focus on. Lincoln also offers advice on holding faith before your manifestations materialize, and serves as an example of what happens when you show up as your full, authentic self. We thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and hope you do too. Well, Lincoln, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's an honor and blessing to be with you guys. Thank you for having me.
So, for anyone listening who isn't familiar with your work, what you do, how would you describe what you do?
I create a synthesis of sound healing and dance music that I call Healing House. And it basically provides people a channel to realize their own divine ability to heal from within, to heal others, to heal the planet, and to interface with a higher consciousness than we typically think that we're able to connect with on the material plane day to day. And using the wisdom from the past and the cutting edge technology and science of the future, quantum science, it turns out it's all the same thing. And there's an incredible opportunity for us to connect to joy and gratitude for the now through sound and vibration, which vibration is the essence of everything. Our thoughts, our feelings, the material world, it all comes down to Om, the Big Bang. In the beginning was the word. It's all the same thing. And the more we tap into that knowingness beyond the human capability to understand through the rational mind, miracles start to occur and profound shifts in our consciousness and the way we interface with reality happen. So, all of that to say, humming, dancing, being together and being grateful to be together is truly our God-given spirit technology. And I think we're in a period of time of humanity where we're ready to tap back into that, because we see that the traditional Western way of doing things doesn't necessarily work. We have so much wealth and power and resources, and yet in many ways people are more isolated, lonely, and unhealthy than they've ever been. And with a couple of simple shifts, we can change that. I know in my heart we can change that in a very cosmic, profound way. So I'm doing my best to amplify that message and those practices that have worked so well for me in my everyday life.
So how does that translate to like day to day? Would you consider yourself a DJ? Would you consider yourself a healer? Maybe a combination of both?
Yeah, I would consider myself all. First and foremost, I aim to be of service to people in the moment. I try to take each present moment and breathe in and know I'm breathing in, and look at the opportunity in front of me and choose the path of love, choose the path of presence, gratitude, and make decisions from the heart to connect to the people around me. That's going to lift everyone up and raise everyone's vibration and bring joy to the world. So I don't know that I have one title for myself. I guess, I strive to be a healer and a connector and an uplifter.
Love that. So, how did your journey start with all of this? Like, what came first? Was it kind of a spiritual awakening? Was music first? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, what were you like as a child?
Well, my parents almost didn't have any more after me, if that says anything.
Okay.
But no, I think, I used to run around as a little kid with a stick and pretend I was a conductor. And I was obsessed with Fantasia and, music always, I just naturally gravitated towards it. And I was definitely an adventurous kid. I had a bad habit of just running away into crowds and getting lost, and having the time of my life and freaking everyone out. But, I think I've always been a seeker of spiritual knowledge, and I've always gravitated towards music as this way that I saw that, the the way people acted in, moment to moment, when music came on, it would like change everything. And I could feel that energy, just intuitively was doing something very profound. And so I gravitated towards making music from a young age. And once I hit my teenage years, I actually started, my first family dog passed away, which was hard for me. And I had all these feelings and I was like, how do I get these out? And I kind of just started like writing poetry. And I was also getting very into like the Red Hot Chili Peppers and the Strokes and, you know, Led Zeppelin and 60s Jimi Hendrix, 60s music as well. And so I think it was just a natural movement to kind of transition from writing poems into singing songs. And, I was learning guitar, so I would play guitar and just start singing songs. And I realized that, I was so blessed to have an incredibly supportive family and friends around me, and they all kind of reacted very well to it. So I was like, I think this is the path. And I started being in bands. I grew up in the Coachella Valley, so Coachella Festival definitely inspired me, and it was kind of the thing to do out there was house parties and people were in bands. So I started forming bands with my friends and playing, and it kind of just expanded out from there.
How old were you at that age when you kind of first experienced? Was that your first experience with death, or had you experienced it before?
That was, I was fortunate in that way that I, had most of my early childhood with a really strong family unit, and everyone was thankfully healthy and happy. My grandfathers have passed away since, which was obviously tough. But yeah, that my dog passing away was the first time that I really experienced that type of loss. And, I think a desire to want to continue to connect to the love that I felt naturally worked its way through sound. And it turns out that using sound and vibration as a bridge to higher consciousness and the divine realm, you can, the ancient mystics of every religion all had very similar practices. And that's why, prayer is usually sung or hummed. And it's usually done not even with words that are part of an actual language in the mystic traditions. It's non-linguistic vocalization, because basically when you're putting out vibration with a very specific intent and allowing your body and your emotions to manifest those vibrations, it is connecting in a way that is outside of the rational mind, the subconscious, which, that's where all the good stuff is. That's where the healing resources are, that divine intuition that we all have. We know the paths we're supposed to take in our heart, and it's often very simple, but it's usually not easy. But it's about having that inner stillness that allows you to cultivate clarity and the courage to be true to yourself and to embody authenticity and to vibrate that out into the universe. And when you do that, the universe rewards you with profound gifts. Sometimes what you asked for, sometimes something you didn't think you needed, but it turned out is 1,000 times better than what you thought you wanted. But that's where synchronicity comes into play, is when you are aligning your intent and your frequency, it creates manifestation and healing. Vocalization plus visualization equals manifestation is another way to think of it. And so it's about combining energy and vibration, mental energy and vibration. It manifests and crystallizes into beauty and peace and alignment.
Okay. I love all of that so much.
Yeah,
But there's
sorry, I
no
don't
way
even
you
know if I
could have
answered the
known that. I
question.
mean, did you know that when way back when? I want to get to like
I think
the very beginning.
yeah.
When did you start this journey of understanding all of that? 'Cause unless you were just like a prophet from such a young age, because the way you just spoke, I'm
No.
like, oh my gosh.
No. I think as a kid, I was very into spirituality. My mom is a psychologist.
Okay.
And was very into Buddhism and, Jungian philosophy. Her PhD was on the significance of dreams. And so I think some of that, rubbed off on me, and listening to Wayne Dyer in the car, and, different kind of philosophical titans like that. And I was also always really interested in religion. And, I went to church services with some of my friends growing up sometimes. And I remember just tapping in intuitively to a sense of reverence and awe, based a lot largely around the music. And I just always kind of was drawn to things that connected people in a way that felt bigger than the human form. And so I guess I naturally gravitated towards it. But, I think you still go through your processes of being an adolescent and figuring out your place in the world and wanting to like be cool and fit in and be celebrated. And I went through all of those things, and I had lots of challenging times along the way, and, losing my faith in myself and rediscovering it, and finding ways to help other people, that kind of illuminated some of my own gifts in the process. And it was just that process of discovery. And then, as life goes on, you encounter challenges, and everyone absorbs their fair share of trauma in different ways. And later in my life, I, had a very challenging relationship that caused me to really kind of lose connection to myself for a while. And I got to a point, where I was really not taking care of myself in the way that I should, and was kind of losing sight of who I was almost. And it got to a really desperate point, and I realized like it went beyond the desire to help myself, and it just became like granular, like curiosity of like, okay, what's actually happening here? Because I'm not who I know I am right now. And I try to change my thoughts, but that doesn't seem to be doing it. So I must have to go deeper. And so I started, going deeper, and, doing more reading. And I read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, which is, it's a really heavy book, but it's incredible. It's about, a Holocaust survivor, who realized that no matter what your physical reality is, it's up to you to define the meaning of your life. And doing that through connection to source and service to others, infuses your life with meaning. And that is really the root of everything, and can bring you out of any situation. And at the same time, I started, I had been on the meditation path for a number of years. Like, I've always loved meditating and mindfulness, but I kind of discovered sound healing specifically. And, through various like modalities, shamanic healing, Vipassana meditation in, the Buddhist Hindu traditions, I realized they were all using sound in this way, like a very specific way, as a sensory anchor that really resonated with me as a musician. And when I started tapping into that, I was like, wow, this is really powerful, and it's really making me feel better, like in my day-to-day life, listening to healing sounds, healing frequencies, humming, chanting. Those things were like unwinding the knots inside of me, and allowing me to kind of reawaken to the beauty of the now, and start looking outside and realizing how beautiful the air was, and the birds singing. And so I started going deeper, and I started reading a book called Healing Sounds by Jonathan Goldman, who is like a master sound healer. He studied under Tibetan chant masters for 15 years in the 70s and 80s, and he wrote this book, Healing Sounds, in the 90s, that kind of integrated all of this knowledge. And it really just like opened a door in my mind, where I started seeing all these connections between the patterns of nature and math and science and music, and realizing that it was all pointing to the presence of this God consciousness that exists in all of us and is reflected in everything. And the more you align with that, the more your life starts to blossom, and you connect within yourself to that endless supply of love and peace and serenity and knowingness that allows you to navigate your life in a meaningful way where you feel confident and you begin to just radiate that out and help others, and people respond to your vibe, your vibration. And I reached out to Jonathan and was lucky enough to connect with him. And I guess he saw something in me and he agreed to be my mentor. And so he lives in Boulder, but we started doing sessions every week, and he imparted so much incredible wisdom onto me and led me down the right paths, more things to read, things to practice, vocal chanting techniques. And he's a really cosmic dude. He's out there, but is also, a scientific mind and an explorer, and uses things that are rooted in science, which all of this is. Like, people think that it's woo woo and it's, crazy out there, but it's actually very simple and elegant. And, when we hum, our cells release nitric oxide, which makes our blood cells expand and the blood flows through us faster and gives us, healing neurotransmitters and hormones that reduce anxiety and inflammation. And these are the processes with which the body heals. And they are triggered by very simple things that are within all of us, our vocal cords and our awareness. So when you put those things together, it's just mind blowing what it can do, like, immediately. So once I started kind of having that direction from Jonathan, it really opened my eyes, and I started just going really fast and far with it. Which, I've always been kind of a nerd, like, at heart. I'm like a musician nerd. And so it allowed me to align those sides of my brain and kind of achieve, the balance that I think I needed to create something that really was from my soul and was for others. And it's been just an incredible experience to connect with so much of the world. It's been a crazy period of growth the past month or two. I've gained like 250,000 followers or something like that in like a month. And it's mind blowing, but it also felt, once I kind of aligned with myself and understood what I was trying to communicate, I don't take it for granted for a second, but I also had a knowingness that it was going to start escalating at a higher rate, because it helped me so much, these modalities and practices. And when you combine it with the joy of house music, I knew it was going to unlock something in other people as well. And so I just feel incredibly blessed that it's done that.
That's so cool. So if we could go back real quick, because one of the things that we love talking about is kind of this intersection of science and spirituality. So can
Yeah.
you explain that again, as far as like what's happening on a cellular level when we listen to music? Because that's so interesting to me.
Yeah. So in the 80s, Fabian Maman, a brilliant scientist and researcher, he used intentional vibration or frequencies to, he would play different notes. I think he's like a xylophone or a mallet instrument. And he was looking at cells using Kirlian photography, which looks at the energy field of the cells, or the aura. And what he's found was that different notes and different harmonic intervals would change the shape and color of the cells. And they were reacting to different notes, different pitches, different textures in specific ways. And so what that means is that vibrations from outside of our body are affecting the cells within us. And if you look at, any studies of cellular health, usually there's a strong connection between the structure and shape of the cells and how they look. And like, I don't think it's a coincidence that the more beautiful and symmetrical and vibrant they look, it tends to correspond to actual health, because the cells make up the organ, which make up, the larger parts of our body. And so our bodies are essentially an orchestra of resonant frequencies. Each, cell type has a resonant frequency. Each organ has a resonant frequency. And so health means that everything is playing in tune. And traditional Western medicine says that if an organ is malfunctioning, aka it's going out of tune, that we should maybe just remove the player from the orchestra, aka surgery, or, drug them into oblivion so they just stop playing or play really quietly. And this research shows that what if we just gave the player their sheet music back through entrainment, which, is if you create a vibration that's close enough to the resonant vibration of the structure, it will start vibrating in tandem with the thing, and it'll slowly come into alignment with that vibration, which is what happens when an opera singer holds the high note and the crystal glass shatters. And so you can do that with cells, and they have done that in different experiments. They've used specific frequencies in a concentrated way to explode cancerous cells, and those same frequencies actually strengthen healthy cells. In another example, Masaru Emoto is a Japanese scientist who did the water crystal experiments, and he showed that projecting different thoughts onto water crystals and also different sound frequencies, it caused positive emotions and feelings projected onto the water crystals create perfect crystalline hexagonal structure in the water molecules. He would freeze them so he could see how they were actually looking at the moment that they were being, exposed to these frequencies or these thought patterns. And negative emotions would just create a muddy mess that didn't look like anything. And when you line up all this evidence together, it becomes pretty hard to ignore the fact that our thoughts are doing the same thing that sound are doing, and they're both having a profound effect on the physical structure of matter. And so when you start practicing that in your moment-to-moment life, you see the effects in an infinite number of ways. And you start to realize that everything is mirroring that reality, that the vibration you put out is what you get back.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's so
It's karma.
interesting. Yeah, and then when you're
Yeah.
creating music, how do you use that? Like when you're creating a song, how are you using that knowledge to create something?
It's an interesting thing because on one hand, you want to channel all of the knowledge and the science and the techniques that work. And on the other hand, the power of music is beyond the rational mind. It exists in the subconscious, which is knowing things that can't really be understood. They're known, they're not understood, they're felt in the body, these truths and these emotions that are pure love and positivity. And so it's a balance of, I think it's about absorbing the knowledge and the practices and then really internalizing them, which puts you in a position to function within that structure without thinking about it too much. And my mentor, Jonathan Goldman, his empirical formula is frequency plus intent equals healing. And so the frequency is the wave with which your intent is carried. And you can project your intent in different ways into physical matter, out into the universe, the quantum field. And so the frequencies are important. Solfeggio frequencies are extremely powerful and have different applications. But in my opinion, intent and focused awareness is by far the most important part of the equation. And so it's really about aligning your mind and body in the now and consciously projecting that out. And the deeper you go into it, you start to feel a reverence and gratitude for these patterns that are found throughout nature and the cosmos. And you start to internalize it. And so the frequency naturally will strengthen and penetrate deeper into people, thoughts, organizations, your food, your drink, what you're drinking, everything through alignment of intent.
Yeah. And I feel like the more you learn about these things, or with you, I'm sure the more you practice these things, the more you're aware of frequency plus intent will equal any manifestation, right? In your case, it's healing, but in the case of our day-to-day lives, if we're not aware of the intentions we're putting out or the frequencies we're consuming, it can manifest in so many different ways. So like you were saying, on the healing level, with the cellular level, it can manifest, in sickness or I don't know. And I'm sure
It can.
you looking at the world now, you look at the world so differently as far as like, what are people's intention? What are they consuming? How is it affecting them? Can you speak on that?
I would say that, yeah, I mean, our mind is a very powerful tool. And I think the thing to realize is that the mind is a tool. The mind is not us. It goes back to Vipassana meditation and, Hindu and Buddhist thought, which is realizing that we are a holographic projection of oneness. And so everything in our physical plane is interpreted through the lens of our mind, because our mind is trying to protect us. In the caveman days, our mind was trying to protect us from predators. And so it was saying, don't go too far out into the unknown because you're probably going to get eaten, or don't try to build this tall thing because another tribe's going to see it and they're going to come take over. And so our mind is constantly trying to contract and keep us isolated within this illusion of being separate from the rest of existence. But when you learn to compassionately notice that and go back to oneness, go back to the breath and breathing in and knowing you're breathing in and being grateful for that, you connect to the now and you enter flow state, which, our brain during waking hours, when you're just kind of going about your day being stressed or caught up in mundane things that you need to do, your brain is putting out, it's in the beta wave state, which is less coherent and it's a lot of noise. But when you start to go in and, you do that through meditation, through sound, through these different mindfulness practices, you change the wave state of your brain to alpha or gamma or theta, which is where monks go in meditation. It's where we go during, when we're asleep and dreaming. And it's changing the frequency of your brain, it's changing the waves that your brain is putting out. And so you can consciously do that during your waking hours. And that is allowing you to open channels to these different dimensions or different realms of perception that allow you to see and feel and experience things in a way that you wouldn't if you're less centered, less awakened, less present. And so it's physically changing things. And when your brain goes into those wave states, it's also, activating different neurotransmitters and hormones within your body. It's lengthening your telomeres, which are basically your aging indicators of your DNA. So like they've done studies, and when you go into those gamma and theta wave states, you're actually you're de-aging yourself. You're reverse aging yourself on a biological, empirical level. So that's the secret that ancient, cultures understood, because they didn't have as many distractions and weren't building these stories around what it meant to be a human. They were interfacing with nature in a much more natural, pure way, and realized we're from nature, and nature has everything that we need to be the embodied version of ourselves when we tap into it.
Wow. I could just listen to you talk. I'm sitting here, I'm just like, I'm so grateful to be having conversations like these and to be speaking to people like you, because I feel like Danielle and I really enjoy house music and going to shows and things like that. And we've always talked about, like, what if someone out there created a set that was like inherently healing for the entire crowd? Like, what would that be like? We've talked about that for years.
Because we've talked about how we feel like, in a way, house music on its own is just healing, because it's bringing people together. It's very joyful, you get to dance. But yeah, just having that extra intention in there. That's
and then
huge.
Yeah. And then I'm sure I was one of the people that found your videos and your content, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's doing it. We have to talk to him.
Well, I'm very honored to be with you guys.
Yeah.
So, and this is about everyone. The Healing House is about the world coming together and reawakening to that knowledge that we all kind of feel in our hearts, and house music has absolutely done that already. I'm drawing on so many world influences and cultures, the native communities, the Black community was a huge, start to the house music world. Afro house right now is taking over the world in those world, percussion sounds and rhythms and grooves. Like, it's because the, more indigenous cultures are more connected to that reality naturally, and it's built into their way of life. And, I think like Western society has this habit of trying to act like, oh, we're so much more civilized now and people live longer. And first of all, that's not even really true. In shamanic cultures, like the elders are venerated and held in high positions within the community, and they live to long ages, and up until they pass on, they're healthy in mind, body, and spirit, and that's not necessarily the case in a lot of Western society, unfortunately. That's actually something that I really feel strongly about, is elevating respect for our elders, and understanding that people that are older than us have so much wisdom. And some of my best friends are in their 70s and 80s now. I gravitate towards elder people because they're so cool and they understand and they've lived, and they don't care about so much of the ego-based stuff, because those layers, whether or not you want it to, they get stripped away as you age and go through life. And that's like part of being human, and it's beautiful. And so learning the lessons from those cultures and integrating it, I'm not here to demonize modern Western society. Like, I love the West as well, and there's incredible technology and there's incredible people, most importantly. And it's about blending the best of all the worlds and coming up with something that, combines the yin and the yang to elevate us to a higher frequency than we've been existing on, which I mean, it's happening. So it's beautiful. I'm so grateful for that.
Absolutely. What are your opinions on mainstream music, whether house music or just regular,
Top 40.
yeah, top 40 hits?
I love all music, and I'm like, it's like, I feel like people in my life joke that I'm like such an easy critic because I'm always like just loving everything. But having said that, I think like a turning point moment for me was, like I've been calling my music like spirit house for a while now, not fully understanding what that meant. And, I would be doom scrolling really through, social media and trying to like absorb inspiration. And I think it's like a double-edged sword, because technology has opened up creation and art to everyone, which is beautiful because you get all these new, incredible, honest experiences. But at the same time, you also get a lot of people creating art more to serve their egos. And you can feel that through the music because it doesn't resonate. They're doing it to look cool or to gain followers or to make money, versus speaking from their heart and trying to help others and, help themselves, heal themselves through art. And so I don't, pass judgment on anyone. I just go on what I feel. I think I've always loved pop music because I love that it connects the world. It's not about age or race or religion. It's like when you hear something that feels good, it feels good. And so I love every genre of music. And I think that there's incredible people at the top that are, doing top 40 records, but I also think that there's a lot of noise that, unfortunately is kind of low vibrational and plays more on, animalistic, ego-based sensations that are kind of like low-hanging fruit, because you can get people easily into that orbit, especially vulnerable people, but it doesn't really do much for anyone. And it doesn't, for me, I was even like well done music, I was scrolling and finding it, and I was getting really like frustrated because I felt this like lack of like satisfaction from it. It's almost like eating, fruit or vegetables that is grown in bad soil and it doesn't have the right nutrients that your body needs. Your body's like, I need more, you know what I mean? And so that's what I seek. And like, to me, that's what high vibrational sound is. And so there's not one determining factor for it. You don't have to use 432 hertz or 528 hertz. You can make music at 440. You know, I like people in my comments, there's like all this people go arguing back, and it's crazy. They're like hating me and defending me. And like, I'm like, I don't even, just do your thing. Like, you know,
Yeah.
but like, it's about just being clear with yourself, about your intentions and expressing them in an honest, authentic way. And like, that's going to resonate. And it doesn't all have to be, you know, bright, happy, kumbaya music. You can make heavy emotional stuff. That's some of the most cathartic, therapeutic music, because it creates a space where people feel safe to feel those things for themselves and to release them, you know? But it's about being honest and going into it with that intention to help people can feel that through the music, through the vibration.
Yeah. As you're speaking, I'm thinking back on what you said about, and I'm pretty sure you said your mentor shared this with you, but the frequency plus intention, like just that
Yeah,
equation is so, like, feel like I'm going to go through
it's
the rest of
huge.
my day or my life thinking about that. It's like,
Processing it.
yeah,
Yeah.
the way you interact with,
Blessings to Jonathan Goldman. I mean, he's an absolute genius, and I'm so grateful for him.
yeah, yeah, because it really shifts your perspective as far as like, for us, it's like if we're creating something like a podcast episode or a piece of content, whatever it may be, or just like in a relationship or interacting with anything in the world. It's like, what's my frequency at? What's my intention? Because if you're not aware of those two things, you could be manifesting or creating something that maybe you're not desiring. So almost it's like, I feel like for myself, I'm like, you could like backtrack it and be like, what is the outcome that I'm hoping for? And then how can I show up for it? What does my intention need to be and where does my frequency need to be at?
Totally.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And
Well
then talking
said.
to you now, and then I get all excited and giddy because I'm like, oh, look at us. We're doing it right now. Like,
And that's how we're supposed to be, you know?
yeah.
That's, I think we've got, you know, we kind of divorced ourselves from the world of spirit in the mainstream culture. And like even science, it's like, you know, even, you know, something like the placebo effect. The placebo effect, people try to malign it and act like that's, you know, a scam or something if something's placebo. Placebo effect is more powerful than like 40% of pharmaceutical drugs, in double-blind studies. So you can look at that as, oh, most drugs don't work, or you can also look at that as our mind is insanely powerful, in its ability to restructure matter, to heal us. It's our most powerful tool, and we barely understand it. And science has kind of just written it off up to this point as like, oh, I don't know. Like they've literally like not put money into researching the most powerful tools we've had, unfortunately. But I think that's changing. And like, those are things that, again, native cultures, you know, the South American cultures, and in India, you know, Ayurvedic medicine, holistic health, it's understanding that we're a full organism, and you can't just, we're not a car, you know, you can't just like fix the rotor and everything is better all the time. Like everything is connected. When you're holding trauma, it manifests as disease in different parts of your body. If you're not expressing your truth, it makes you sick from the inside. And that's our mind. And on the flip side, you can use your mind with very specific techniques that we've known since the beginning of being humans. And unfortunately, in the past like 100 years, it's become a thing where, oh, once you hit like 6 or 7 years, you don't really, that's for kids, you know, like dreams and believing in higher things. Like, you know, obviously people are religious, but it still becomes like, okay, well, there's that, but then like we're in the real world, you know, you got to grow up, you got to get serious, you got to eat what you kill, whatever, you know what I mean? It's like these weird kind of things that have become part of our internalized psyche that aren't serving us and aren't even accurate at all. They're actually the opposite of accurate. But it's a negative feedback loop. And it's hard because you start confirming your own biases and saying, oh, well, yeah, that's not going to work because that's not realistic. And it doesn't work because you think that it's not realistic. And then, you know, that's how you move down the vibratory chain, so to speak.
Yeah.
And our minds are very powerful one way or the other, but the universe is a neutral force multiplier, in my opinion. It's like an algorithm. It's like your feed, and whatever you pay attention to and engage with, good or bad, it's going to say, oh, this is working. They're responding to this. Let me feed it some more, and so, and there's a lag between what you're doing, before it starts manifesting. So that's where faith comes into play. And you have to understand the mechanics of what's happening before it actually works. And you get tested and serve things that challenge you to be like, are they going to pick the high path, or are they going to pick back to the same as what they've been doing? And when you make that leap of faith into the unknown, that's when the miracles happen.
Do you know what I'm going to ask? One of my favorite topics is faith, and I'd love for you to speak on that, just because I feel like people may have a religious connotation when it comes to that word, and I've really been trying to deconstruct it in my own life and practice it in my own life. And over the past couple years where I've really embraced my own personal faith, my life has opened up and flourished in a way that I am just so eternally grateful for, and I know that that is a huge reason why. So hearing you use that word, I was like, I have to have him speak on that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I love the word faith and the concept of faith. It's one of the most important things, and it doesn't have to be based in any religious dogma. I consider myself every religion, and I love all religions for the root of what they're communicating. But that's, beside the point. It's about realizing that you are the creator of your experience, and everything that's happening, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you and through you. And even if you don't necessarily like fully believe that yet, just play around with it. That's my recommendation, is to play around with, making the conscious decision to monitor your thoughts. And when you start going into a self-limiting place, flip it on its head and fake it till you make it. Like, literally just pretend that you believe that things are working out for you and in your favor, and start changing the way you operate to reflect that. And I have 100% knowingness that it will positively alter your reality, even when things are hard, because you start inverting that negative energy and alchemizing it into positive energy. And even if it's not even if you're not getting the immediate feedback from the universe that you think you deserve, changing your perspective around it means that you are positively shaping your control over how you're processing the experience. And that's going to change the way your body is on a cellular level. You're going to start producing happy, hopeful chemicals instead of negative, fear-based chemicals. So you're going to start de-aging yourself and improving your life quality just through the thoughts. And so once you start really taking ownership over that and realizing that whatever is happening on the outside, it's still ultimately your responsibility how you filter it on your side. Beyond that initial moment of react, like, obviously if something scary or dangerous happens, like, you're going to go into fight or flight mode. But people stay trapped in that fight or flight mode, and they hold on to things that happened days or weeks or months or years or decades ago. And those thoughts become your attitude, which becomes your habits, which becomes you. It becomes your reality. So when you start stripping it back to the granular level and realizing that it all starts with this moment, this moment, this moment, and in each of those moments, you instead vibrate from a place of gratitude for whatever is there, and see yourself as a student that the universe is singing to and giving you signs from everywhere about the path of your heart and what the next step is. Usually faster than, usually sooner than later, it starts to correspond to positive changes in your life. And that's not me just saying that. That's all of the, highest level thinkers of our time, of past times, of the ancient times, the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, the ancient sage teachings of India and Native America. It's all the same thing. It's all saying that your thoughts shape reality more than you can ever even really understand.
Do you have any advice for someone who maybe is starting to follow their intuition. They're on a path of like deep purpose. Like they know what they're doing is serving and helping other people, but maybe they aren't getting, like you said, it's not like it's not a recognition from a place of ego. It's from a place of wanting to help people and serve people. And maybe your audience isn't very big, or maybe the opportunities aren't showing up yet. Do you have any advice for people who are kind of in that in between where they are having to hold the faith and believe that it's going to happen before it actually does?
Yeah, I would say, firstly, I would say take a moment to just become still within yourself, because it's very easy to look around you and compare your experience to other people's experience. And you have to kind of really internalize the fact that you are on your own journey, and it's a one-of-one journey. And you have gifts within you that no one else has, that exact combination of gifts. And it's very rarely about, mastery over a specific subject or topic or practice that people seek from you. It's really you. They want your essence. They want your love. They want your presence. And you start by giving that to yourself. And so I think people are in such a rush to keep trying things and putting things out there. And it's like, it's okay to take a second and just go within and be in nature and like let your higher self speak to you by becoming still. The ultimate path is through meditation, but you don't necessarily have to, sit there and levitate for that to happen. You can just go for a walk, or, be with people that you love and appreciate you, and give yourself a moment to zoom out a level and realize that you have all the time you need to do the things you want to accomplish, but they might not manifest in the way you expect. And instead of holding on really tight to an expectation of how things will go, and then I'll be happy, realize you can be happy with what you have right now if you are healthy and safe. If that's all you really need to really appreciate the present moment, even just for a second, and just start for that 1 second and really embody gratitude for that 1 second. And you start naturally like expanding it out. And when you do that, that is what people care about. People don't actually care about what you're doing or they care about what you can do for them, but they really care about how you make them feel. And people just want to be heard and understood and supported, and want to be with the person that they're interfacing with. And so once you align within yourself a little bit more, then you can start thinking about, don't think about speaking to a viral audience. Think about speaking to the one person that you're trying to help. Really embody the person that you're trying to serve with your practice or your content or your message, and speak to them. Just speak from the heart and do what you do from that place of love and alignment. And the people that are meant to find you will find you. And opportunities can bloom without a massive scale of people. There's the 100 true fan theories. Like if you have 100 people that really resonate with what you're doing and you're helping them, that's enough to make like a comfortable full-time living. And it's not, these things are not necessarily easy, but they are simple. It's like if you really silence the noise and detach from the ego-based desires of what you're trying to do and get down to the heart of it, and really go all in on understanding that you're a spiritual being having a human experience, then you can start to connect to the truth of what it is that you're doing. And through practice and, focused intent on that, you'll start to find the things that work. And you know when something works. It's not a question, you feel it and the hair stands up on the back of your neck and stuff. So it's just about tapping into that presence. And I know that's not a simple answer again, but
it kind of is at the
really
same
just
time.
about going. It all goes back to going within and become like excited and enthusiastic about the field that you want to contribute to. Be a fan again. Don't worry about being number one. Like find the things that really make you feel the way you want to make other people feel, and take a moment to like immerse yourself in that and explore. Like sometimes for me, like books and Audible and podcasts, like your guys' amazing podcast, like this type of thing. Sometimes when your inner voice feels, lacking in coherence, look outside of your voice and see what resonates, and just keep an open mind to receiving that wisdom from places that you wouldn't expect to receive it. I think that's, I've been there too. Like there was a time when I was banging my head against the wall, trying to break through or whatever you want to say. And eventually I, started stripping back the layers and realizing that the things that weren't working because they weren't rooted in my authentic self. They were, incorporating an element of fear-based thinking of like, I want to make sure people think I'm like this cool DJ guy. And like, I want to make sure that the posts I do give off the illusion of success and like I'm a big deal. And it's like, once you actually just drop that, that's when you can channel the real stuff that is going to get you to those places that you want to get.
I think those are all, like you said, it's like not simple, but at the same time, it is really simple because it's just coming back to yourself and coming back to presence and just like enjoying the moment and just
Yeah.
really understanding what lights you up and going for those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would love to know. Sorry, I'm kind of switching gears, but I've been thinking about it the whole
No.
time, and I was like, just save it for the end. What are your like big three? What's your sun, moon, and rising sign?
I got a lot of Libra in my chart. I'm a
Okay.
Libra sun and moon and a Capricorn rising.
All Earth. Wow. Right?
Libra's air.
Libra. Sorry, I was thinking Virgo.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I can see that. Okay. And then would you say
I do people that are very like spiritually connected, whenever they meet me, they're always like, you give off a lot of earthling energy. So I don't know what that means exactly.
I feel like because I have no earth in my chart, and more recently I've been told that as well. And I almost think that there's something to when you're really grounded and rooted in your purpose and like living a life of true authenticity, where you're not kind of searching for things outside of yourself, you're really comfortable, grounded in the present moment. People read that as, I mean, that's what you are. You're being grounded. So that makes sense. But
Well,
also you're very easy to talk to. You're very comfortable. So I could see how the Libra energy would also be good for like serving crowds. Like you're here to like keep the peace, keep the balance, keep the flow.
Well, I've always been definitely like, and that's been something I've worked on in my own life, is like people pleasing tendencies, because it's a beautiful thing to want to, make people feel good, but you still do have to honor yourself. And through honoring yourself, that allows you to authentically honor others. And so it's an interesting kind of like paradox, but yeah, it's cool. But I've definitely always enjoyed, being a little bit of a performer.
Yeah. Well, that was my question I wanted to ask, is just the experience of live music and performing and going into a space. And I feel like what makes a really great DJ is someone who can feel the energy of the crowd, feel kind of what they want to bring to the crowd, and either amplify the energy that's already there or maybe like switch it up a little bit. So what is that experience like for you?
It's so beautiful. I love performing live for people. It's my favorite thing, especially the last couple shows. Now that, I've started putting out Healing House and people have really resonated with it in this beautiful way. It's like so fun to connect with people in person. And, I've been doing live music for like pretty much like my whole life at this point. And I think it's an interesting mix of, the live music. A good live music experience will take you out of your body, but then as the provider of the experience, or, the co-creator of the experience, I feel it's important to maintain presence within my body at the same time. And I think if you maintain your roots on earth, but you're also like going up in the clouds, if you do it right, you're like stretching out, you know what I mean? Energetically. And so that's a very fulfilling, gratifying experience to feel that. It like opens up this new space inside of me every time that is just so beautiful. And then from the more like performance standpoint, I I've done like kind of everything under the sun. I mean, like I first moved to LA when I was like 19, and I got linked up with this awesome label that was doing more hip hop R&B stuff. And I was kind of, this weird kid that was making like indie rock music, but also kind of making beats on his computer. And I ended up like being contracted to be the guitarist for my now amazing friend Yuna, who's an incredible singer songwriter from Malaysia, who is also, really big in America. And I ended up being her guitarist on tour for like 3 years, going to these shows and playing, jazz club type things and some really cool, we were on Jimmy Kimmel, which was amazing. So I got all those type of experiences. And then I kind of like circled back around and was doing more like EDM and DJing in bars and parties and clubs, small clubs, like DIY type stuff, which is like, messy energy and, like DJing frat parties and like doing all that kind of stuff, which is also beautiful in its own way. It's very escapist, but it's like everyone is in the moment and trying to discover themselves, at that age. And so it was like such a cool experience to learn how to like manage different energies. And I try to just use all that to realize that as an artist, your role is to provide people a platform to play out their own inner experience and to work through things that you don't necessarily understand or have control over. And so you just want to be that safe space for people to do that inner work for themselves. So that's the energy that I try to cultivate at my shows. And, with Healing House, we're trying to cultivate a reverent gratitude for the now. And it's almost, it's like a church service, like a house music church service, you know what I mean? Without adhering to any religious dogma or anything. It's not about that. It's just about realizing that we're unlocking this like joy in these higher frequency emotional states, joy, gratitude, authenticity through sound and connecting it to sound, because it merges with the emotions and it amplifies it. And it's just something that you can feel. It's like this like cosmic glue that's bonding everyone together, and you form this super organism, and crazy, beautiful experiences happen all the time. So it's incredible. So grateful to get to do it.
Cosmic glue. I like that.
Cosmic glue.
That should be the title of this podcast.
I like it.
I'm just curious. Do you have a couple like favorite DJs that come to mind?
That's a tough question. I mean, I do. I have lots.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah. Like on the, there's people like Rufus and Calvin Harris that, are doing it in a really high level mainstream way, but they're bringing in kind of that euphoria and chill, but still high vibration, high energy sound. And also, I love that they're incorporating really great songwriting with incredible production. I come from a songwriting background, so I really gravitate towards people that tell stories, which is funny because I feel that my music is kind of moving towards this more mantra-based, non-linguistic vocalization stuff. But I still try to tell stories through that. But so Rufus and Calvin comes to mind, and then I'm into like organic down tempo house, and Bora Uzer is an incredible one who I love from Turkey. Who else? I mean, I honestly listen to a lot of like reggae and Motown and stuff like that. Everyone can check it all out on the Healing House Spotify playlist on the Lincoln Jesser artist page.
Amazing.
I have 12 hours of music on there that has helped me. It's a blend of sound healing, bowls, reggae, dance music, my music, everything that I kind of feel embodies high vibration. And there's not like one connecting genre between it, but I think it seems that people can feel that there's a unified intention there between everything. Yeah, I'm getting a little off topic, sorry.
No, I love that. We'll have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely check out the Healing House playlist on Spotify. Coming to Apple Music soon too.
Okay, amazing. Do you have any shows coming up this summer that people can look out for?
Everything's in the works right now. It's been incredible I'm getting a lot of people reaching out from all over the world asking me to come play, in Europe and Asia. And I just did the first Healing House 001 live event in Venice, California. And we're lining up more Healing House events. So you can expect more of that probably all over the world.
So cool.
Amazing.
Well, where can we follow you if people want to, see your music, play your music, or just follow your journey? How can they do so?
You can follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Lincoln Jesser. And you can find me on Spotify and Apple Music and all the streaming services and YouTube, Lincoln Jesser. And you can follow the Healing House playlist on Spotify. And send me a message. I'm around.
Amazing.
Instagram is definitely a good place to kind of keep up with everything that I'm doing.
And I'll link that in the show notes. Well, Lincoln, this was such an honor to talk to you. I feel very grateful to get to speak to you at this point of your career. I didn't realize that you just recently kind of gained a huge following. So I'm sure this is just the beginning of a whole new venture in your life. And yeah, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. Like you were saying, you get all giddy when you're in the right place, having the right conversation. And that's exactly how I feel right now. And I hope the people listening feel the same. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. It was truly an honor and love your energy and very grateful to you for allowing me to amplify what I'm doing. And I'm also grateful to you guys for empowering people to be their authentic selves and to let their authentic souls and light shine through. It's really a beautiful thing. So
Thank you.
very grateful. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.